Georgia 10-1 now after a pummeling of Kentucky in the second half. It's, well, what, last 40 minutes of the game, say. Amazing statistics at the end, 381 yards, 123. Jake Fromm did not play well at the beginning of this game at all. He had the pick that led to 3 points for the Cats, and then on one of the balls he threw into double coverage, it was Javon Wims, I think, was wide open. Now, sometimes I can't see things so well from on the field, but that I could see was that he missed a wide open, what would have been a touchdown. But 9-14, perfectly fine, 123 yards. That is all he's got to do. And when he plays well, these guys won't lose. I mean, if he plays well, Georgia will not lose. That's all there is to it. For Kentucky, a good season. Second time they've been blown out, this time by Georgia. And Mississippi State, obviously, they gave a game away against the Gators and a tough loss to Ole Miss. So we'll just see what happens with them next week with Louisville. Nick, Sony, Nick with 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sony with 87 yards, 3 touchdowns. I know first time I saw Nick was I went to Cedartown, watched some practice. Didn't look like anything unbelievable necessarily, but you had to go watch him play the game, and that was the big thing. Is if you watched him play, you would see just how special he was, and he just wears on you, man. Him and Sony wear on people. They wear you out, those two, and Davin and Lorenzo too. That foursome there coming back really probably, I would say, changed the trajectory of this program in many ways. Otherwise you'd be relying on younger guys. DeAndre Swift is a very good player, but the 1-2 punch of Nick and Sony, I think they're going to be missed. And a lot of times people over-celebrate kids, usually quarterbacks. But with that foursome, but Nick and Sony particularly, they really deserve the praise. Those guys came back, they graduated, they've got their team very possibly could win the conference in 2 weeks and beyond. And if you can win the conference, you can win a national championship. So, but what they did was they set the bar high enough to where this team, you couldn't sort of just slop your way through it. And they really haven't much of the season. Maybe tonight for a little bit. There's lulls in times. Roger Federer doesn't win 6-love every set. So you do have to play the competition that's in front of you. And Kentucky is certainly not a bad team, but those I just think about Nick, and I was closer to him than I thought at the time when he tore his knee up. He landed. He was probably within 4 feet of me, and I just never heard many people scream like that before. That was true pain. And these guys have been through 2 head coaches, one a beloved head coach, Mark Richt, and 3 offensive coordinators, 1 really bad offensive coordinator with Brian Schottenheimer, 2 defensive coordinators, sort of a culture change. We'll see. But the biggest thing to me, and I wrote about this tonight, is I can't write the legacy of these guys yet. I don't know what it is, because it might involve a conference championship. It might involve an Orange Bowl championship. It might involve winning the Sugar Bowl and losing in the national championship. It might involve winning the Rose and winning the national championship. You've got a chance here, whether these next 2 weeks, whatever happens, you've got a chance to either win the national championship, the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl, or the Rose Bowl. Those are damn rare things around here, particularly the Rose and the Orange, for obvious reasons. It's been a special season, but it's not done. They were lackadaisical tonight at the beginning. The passing game has got to be relevant, and that means that Jake Fromm has to play well, and he has to be given the ability to play well. Everything goes hand in hand. And the penalties are just getting stupid now. See, And that just can't happen. There's too many dumb penalties. I can't remember how many 15-yard penalties. Georgia had at least two false starts. The procedure penalty took away a big run or something, first down. It just, and it's just like, that's not what these guys should be. Kentucky only had 2 penalties for 30 yards, but one of theirs was absolutely insane as well, giving Georgia 7 points. You can't give good teams any chance. You can't give any team any chances. You can't double fault. You can't miss free throws at the end of the game. But back to those guys, man. I mean, Sony and Nick, they're not talkers. And that's fine. They're not, but that was a lot of emotion tonight from Nick, a kid who, when I went to see him at Cedartown, I tried to get him to do a commitment video saying that he had committed to Georgia, just so I'd have it in the queue, so to speak. And he didn't want to do it. And I said, that's fine, man. It's no problem at all. But that's kind of been who he's been the whole time. People talk about humble. People say that shit way too much, man. That shit is overrated. It's just stupid how much people say that. And Nick has been humble the entire time. Sony has too, really. I mean, those two guys, they're never going to have to buy a drink in this town. They're never going to have to, I mean, they behaved themselves. This senior class has basically behaved themselves. They haven't done anything dumb. So, and Davin Bellamy really grew up, man. I mean, he was a man-child, and he's not a man-child anymore. He's just a man. So, there's the difference between last week and this week with the expression on kids' faces was pretty dramatic. But they got a serious test with Tech. I mean, I think maybe I'm overdoing it. I don't know, but Tech is got a pretty good run defense. And I think we all know how complicated it is to play the option. Now, if you stop it, they're not going to win. But you're going to have to score some points. Georgia might have to score 30 points to win. That should not be a problem, you would think. I think they will be 10-point favorites. Maybe that's too high. I don't know. But look, man, if you can't beat Tech and you can't beat Auburn and Alabama in the championship game, you can't beat Oklahoma or Clemson or Miami, whoever comes out of that schizophrenic ACC. Or Wisconsin, then you don't deserve to be national champions. So next week it's about whipping Tech's ass. These guys have not really whipped Tech in a while. They've not beaten Tech a ton lately, and that's just not acceptable around here. So this is a great season and everything, but you got 2 weeks in front of you that are pretty much must win. So it's time to go get it. All right, Georgia defeats Kentucky. The cat snipped. 42-13. Dean Legge signing off from Sanford Stadium.